Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and thank you for joining us in today's show, Facts in Focus, where we will be discussing the infamous Morocco Gate, the scandal that is making headlines around the world. Several MEPs and former MEPs are revealed to be corrupted. They are bribed by Al Makhzen regime to serve its interests within the European Parliament. The Belgian authorities raided on early December the homes and offices of multiple MEPs and former MEPs, among which is Antonio Panzeri, who played a huge role in favor of Morocco in many issues, notably Western Sahara. And this scandal is still snowballing with more facts revealed. To discuss the topic, I am happy to have with me Mr. Ismail Lebesh, who is a professor of political science and international relations. Hello, sir, and thank you for joining us. I also have with me Mr. Kamal Mansari, who is the head of Jeune Indépendant. He's a consultant for Canal, Algérie.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. And via Skype, I also have with me Ms. Umayma Abdeslam, who is a representative of the Polisario Fund to Geneva. Hello, Ms., and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for hosting me.
And lastly, we are also happy to have Gilles Diver, who is a lawyer and a researcher in law via Skype as well. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Okay, sir.
Right, before we delve into today's topic, let's watch this report by our colleague Manal Ammari that goes into details about the dimensions of this scandal.
Lobbying international organizations, namely the European Union, is an ancient tradition in the Moroccan regime, which relied on a well-articulated friend group, which operated under the European Parliament on its behalf in return for money. According to former UN envoy for Western Sahara, Francesco Bastali, who stated that parliamentarians themselves supported the illicit interests of their sponsors and their agendas within the European institution, while making sure to facilitate the identification of other parliamentarians who could be of greater utility to their clients, due to the nature of their functions and responsibilities within the parliament, which in turn created several opportunities to approach them frequently through social gatherings, visiting missions, or otherwise. For the Italian diplomat, this is a well-articulated system which includes monitoring the behavior of parliamentarians who have been bribed to ensure that they vote or even pressure in accordance with their duties, adding that Morocco has a very offensive presence, both in its bilateral relations with key countries and in international forums, such as the UN and the EU. José Bové is one of the former MEPs who were approached by Morocco while he was a reporter of the Foreign Trade Committee between 2009 and 2014.
J'étais rapporteur de la Commission du commerce extérieur dans les années 2009-2014, et à ce moment-là, j'ai été en charge du dossier.
I was the rapporteur of the Foreign Trade Committee between the years 2009-2014. At that time, I was in charge of the file on the free trade agreement on fruits and vegetables with Morocco. As the rapporteur, I objected this project, since it was harmful for Moroccan and European producers. What actually happened was that under the pressure from the Moroccan Agricultural Minister, who is now the Prime Minister, who had the support of his private club, including MEPs, the minister didn't stand the fact of me objecting this project. He offered me a gift at Montpellier in a coffee shop.
Toute tendance politique du Parlement européen, eh bien, le ministre de l'Agriculture, ne supportant pas que je puisse m'opposer à ce projet, m'a proposé de m'amener un cadeau à Montpellier.
In a similar context, Ana Gomez, former member of the European Parliament, became interested in a human rights NGO called Fight Impunity, which was created by former MEP Pier Antonio Panzeri, a network that has been operating in the European Parliament for a long time, and which, according to her, was set up by the Makhzen. In a similar context, the Italian daily newspaper Il Fatto Quotidiano revealed that the Makhzen regime's interference was not limited to the nomination of members of the Eurochamber committees who dealt with delicate files for this country, but also the candidates of the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought. After analyzing the list presented by various political groups, it was revealed that in 2021, the left-wing group proposed Sultana Khaya to be included in the trio of finalists. However, with the complicity of European parliamentarians on Morocco's payroll, who lobbied within the European Parliament. The Sahrawi activist was deprived of this award while she was under house arrest. Furthermore, Rabat was also involved for the amendment of the annual report of the European Parliament on the common foreign and security policy, as well as the nomination of MEPs, namely Eva Kaili and Andrea Cozzolino, in certain key positions within the European institution. The Brussels Public Prosecutor's Office continues its investigations through the analysis of the computers found in the parliamentary assistance offices, which highlighted anomalies regarding certain nominations.
Right, the beginning is with you, Mr. Debesh. Now, Morocco Gate is one of the many international scandals of Al Makhzen. Let's not forget Pegasus spyware scandal, which broke out earlier. My question to you is, why is it that Al Makhzen relies so heavily on these unethical methods?
Morocco occupied Western Sahara using lobbying and corruption for the elements of the government of Franco to gain the Madrid Accords. That means the existence of the political system of Morocco is based on corruption and misleading people. But what really surprises me, it doesn't surprise me, it should surprise the European people, and the European Parliament and the European leadership. How come the European Union, defending democracy, democratic values, human rights, freedom, transparency, and then come in such a blackmailing situation in the very, very existence in Europe? That means that what Europeans have been issuing statements, decisions against countries based on so-called human rights have not been made by the European institutions, but have been made by lobbying, which means, again, Algeria was a victim of Europe. Western Sahara was a victim of Europe. Algeria in the 1990s was a victim of Europe. That means not Europe as leadership, as parliament, but because of corruption and other influencing elements within the existing system. So now, Morocco has been doing all this to gain, I would say, some interest or public interest. The real interest is not this, but public interest. One, to gain some accords, some trade agreements with Europe, and to try to make a very positive image about Moroccan oppressive system, oppressive rule, colonialist rule in Western Sahara, and above all, trying to drive European 35 countries or 34 countries to take decisions against the United Nations, against the international legality, against the international law. But why Morocco has accelerated all this for the last 10 years? Why? Because the Western Sahara, the Polisario representative, the Western Sahara has been very active, very dynamic, trying to divert such Moroccan lobbying and oppression, and to the extent that the European Court Justice issued a statement stating that Morocco is a colonial country to the Western Sahara. So that's why Morocco began to accelerate and push forward, trying to influence like some MPs in the parliament, because Morocco itself as a system is based. The system of Morocco is based only on escaping from the reality and trying to catch something, losing in the end. The same like trying to gain some decisions in favor of their way of dealing the issues in Morocco, whether inside Morocco, that means human rights, or in the case of Western Sahara. Now, why now as well? Because now the European Union began to wake and know how Moroccan deals with such issues at the expense of the interest of Europe. That's why the NGOs in Europe began to work to show to the leadership of the European countries and to the European Union Parliament that you have been misled by Moroccan authorities and Moroccan Secret Service secret services. I think now the time for Europe to start to change those people who have been issuing and pressing for statements, false statements, including Algeria. Recently, the Europeans tried to accuse Algeria of what so-called Al-Ahmadiyya have been 17 person or 20 person or 30 person trying to say we have been violated the human rights. But they are blind about what's happening in Western Sahara people, almost 1 million people, blind how millions, billion, 100,000, 500,000 euro, millions of dollars, all being given as gifts with evidences. Right, Panzari, he was decorated by the king himself for doing such an influencing role within the institution of the Parliament of Europe.
Right. Thank you,
It's
Mr.
a very
Debesh.
embarrassment for the European Union, and before it is embarrassment to the whole media and the world.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Debesh. To you, Mr. Mansari. As Mr. Debesh said, Morocco tried to achieve many objectives through this interference, including concluding trade agreements with the European Union. If you can tell us more about the importance these trade unions would be included in Western Sahara's territories. If you can tell us more about the importance of these agreements and overall the objectives of Morocco through this interference.
Well, the reality is that Morocco is trying to impose a reality, de facto reality about the Western Sahara issue. When the Parliament, the European Parliament, is not the only space that Morocco is trying to bribe or play the intruders inside it. There are many other spaces, especially the United Nations, where the key players, the big players are there, like the United States. And we know that currently the United States is one of the supportive of the Morocco regarding the Western Sahara issue. So it does not, for the European wide, especially the European, there is two factors. First one is the fact that there is a big space to control or to take, just like bites, even with some political personalities, or even with MPs, or even with the media. So there's 27 countries that are playing a key role in Europe. So all these are voices that could help in a way or another the Moroccan issue. So this is where the shoe pinches, if I may say, and Morocco is trying to get influence over there, whether through bribery, whether through blackmailing, or whether with other means like Pegasus. When we have seen how Morocco has blackmailed high personality like the president, French President Macron. He was spied by the Moroccan secret services. So, in the other hand, the second point is the fact that Morocco has agreement. The European Association had an association with Europe, and it's trying to sell its product. This is why we have heard Mr. Joseph Bové, who was contesting, and the fact that he was targeted by the Moroccan secret service agency to be bribed. Why? Because the farmers in France, in particular, has contested the fact that the product from the Western Sahara are being sold and imported into the European space with lower prices. So there is a moral problem and a commercial problem, and in the same time, as a syndicate, as somebody who has been entire life defending the farmers, he was the target. He was targeted. If they gain this guy, if they gain this person, they may change the voices within the farmers and within the agricultural sector. This is why recently we have heard how the European Court of Justice has turned down the the agreement between some European countries, including France and Belgium and Italy and Spain, regarding the agricultural products harvested in the Western Sahara. So this is in one hand. The other hand is the fact that to have a permanent presence inside, or control, or even intrusion inside the parliament, means that you can control any other voices that could stand against the Moroccan occupation of Western Sahara. Antonio Panzeri, who has been charged by the judicial system in Belgium of being for bribery, including his wife and his daughter, and as well Francesco Giorgio, who is his assistant. He was the head of the bilateral commission between the Maghreb region, between Morocco and the European Union. So he could do whatever he wanted as a top leader, as a top MP inside the European Parliament. And if the European Parliament has control over or try to waive the Maghreb, the Morocco policy or targets or even ambitions, they could influence the European Commission, because they are the person who could, in a way or another, influence the European Commission, which gave budget, which could decline or trace the policies. In this way, this is how Morocco has played in different levels, through the European Parliament, through the media, and through even some commissions that could, because there are a lot of bilateral commissions and joint commissions between Morocco and the European Union, because of the association agreement they have adopted years ago. This is why the corruption has been stated, the bribery has been proven, and this scandal is probably one of the scandals that have portrayed the relations between Europe and Morocco. Everything is based on corruption, and not in legal ways, not in justice, not in fairness, not even in basic rights. That's why it's one of the most despicable scandals we have heard so far.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mansari. My next question is to you, Mr. Gilles Divert. Now that these revelations came up to the surface about corruption and lobbying within the European Parliament, calls are rising for major reforms within the European Parliament. What can we expect these reforms to be, and what are the steps that the European Parliament will take to prevent these acts in the future?
We know we will have next year hearing before the court after the decision of last year, when the tribunal cancelled the agreement. So it will be a very important hearing. It was a public hearing, and everybody is invited to participate and to examine what is the nature of the debate. So for us, it's very important. It's of prominent importance, but this question of how happened the agreement come on the table. And we have lots of things to speak, and it will be debated before the judge, because we cannot say Europe. And if we, as a jurist, we work with a legal reasoning, and we are for some part in accord, for another part with discussion, but we have the same ground, and we are used to that. But from the question for Sahara, we see a point of view totally opposite, and when we are on the parliament, we don't understand what they say. They have arguments totally funny, and when we come before the court, it is a regularity, and we win each time we have win before the court. So what is the cause of the difference? Now we are clear. The cause of the difference between the parliament and the commission and the court is corruption. And you have to see with the history, brief legal history, before the decision of justice of 2020 and 16. It was the situation administration de facto. Administration de facto has no regime in international law, but it was a practice. So Morocco has needs not a big influence from the parliament because administration de facto. But in the decision of December 2016, the court said there is no administration de facto. It does not exist. You need to have an express agreement. And then begin the increasing of the corruption. Because to have the express agreement, you need to have a vote of the parliament. So it is the decision of December 2016, which is the beginning of this affair. And when we go to Brussels for discussion and to have a meeting, we see clearly that some people, some parliamentarians, are always in legal reasoning in favor or in disfavor, but legal reasoning, and over it is stop. There is no discussion. They have an opinion. They cannot explain the opinion, but they will vote. The decision is organized. Okay, what happened? You have blood.
Yes, Mr. Gildiver, exactly on this point. Let's go now to Ms. Umayma Abdeslam. It is reported that Sarah Aikmaz from Western Sahara Resource Watch stated earlier that when talking to Panzeri about Western Sahara and the fisheries agreement, he was unreceptive, and she described it as hitting a wall. She said it was clear that he was not going to do anything about it. My question to you is, how do you think that this interference in these MEPs and former MEPs that were corrupt hindered the advancement of the Sahrawi cause in Europe and within the European Parliament specifically?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, what has happened in the European Parliament is the tip of the iceberg. So it's the same pattern of action of Morocco in every capital of the world, in every international organization, in every place. And the impunity that goes with Morocco, it has given him the courage to continue to step down on the democracies like European Parliament and do what they want with total impunity. So my point of view about these guys who are revealed in this corruption in the European Parliament is the same pattern that we have seen in the Chris Coleman. It's a hacker that has revealed with a lot of documents how Morocco uses corruption with the officials of the UN in every place, and also in Geneva to silence the question of human rights. And it's the same pattern. After that, they use Pegasus also. And they have gone with a lot of impunity, and that they're given the courage to continue violating the democracy. So we as Sahrawis, we are asking for the review of all the decisions, resolutions related to whatever subject from 2011 until today. Especially, we feel that the renovation of the agreement of fisheries has really affected the peace process, and other questions also has affected the peace process. So also I want to tell you that this kind of corruption is affecting right now my work here in Geneva. For example, there is a report about the number of the refugees who are in Algeria. And this number has come up in the report from the Office of the High Commissioner in 2011, and the High Commissioner himself of the actual Filippo Grande is still continue to not let this report go out to the public, to the persons who are financing the refugees, to help Algeria with the burden of these refugees because of the lack of the political solution. So as Sarah states, the corruption has really destroyed the institutions of European Union, and I hope that Sahrawi people can be now listening, and we hope that the review of all the resolutions related to Western Sahara can be implemented very soon.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Abdeslam. Back to you, Mr. Mansari. Now, as we said, that this scandal is making headlines, and as we can see, Fatou Quotidiano's headline, my question to you is, can you continue to tell us more about the echo of this scandal, and what does this tell us about the credibility of the decisions already made concerning Morocco and the European Parliament?
Absolutely, because why? When you have something like an institution that is tarnished by such a scandal, the European are always defending the fact that there are pledging human rights and waiving democracy, waiving human rights issues, waiving transparency in all issues. So when this scandal was unleashed or broke out, it became clear now that it's going to have a ripple effect, whether on the institution itself or on other institutions. Why? Because we have seen how in other institutions like the United Nations or even the U.S. Congress, how some senators and governors have reviewed it just to post or even submit a report to President Biden about Algeria. So this stance was suspicious for many experts and many observers, whether in Algeria or outside Algeria, about the fact why in this specific time those 27 senators have unleashed such an operation against Algeria. So it seems that nobody is acting without interest, without being pushed forward by a hidden force that is playing on the back of the Congress. This is on one side. On the other side, people like Eva Kaila, who is the number 2. She's a top individual, top figure in the European Union, yes. Which, if involved, and now she's jailed, it means that even the top people are suspicious, that you cannot trust them for any reason. So now we have to, I think the most important step to do is to assess the previous resolutions made, or even the speeches, how they were made, who made them, and why, and at what purpose. So regarding the Western Sahara issue, or even Algeria, because we have seen how many times the Parliament, the MPs in the European Parliament have targeted Algeria, and in the same time they targeted the Western Sahara and even the Polisario. They played as a proxy and even as a springboard for the Moroccan policies, Moroccan manipulative operations to gain support, to bolster their propaganda. We have to go back. I think even Algeria, as an officially, has to ask question. We have to ask question, what happened really? And we need to know, we have to interfere and to ask and push the European Parliament to respond about this accusation. We know now that the judicial system in Belgium is taking charge, is investigating, but in the same time, countries like Algeria, who has been a victim of this propaganda, and even those Moroccan manipulative operation, has to ask questions and has to demand from the European officials to give explanation about the situation. We need to know what happened so far, whether whether on the bilateral questions, or even with the Western Sahara issue, and even with the commercial agreement that have been conducted by Morocco, and how they were conducted, and who were behind it, and why they have illegally occupied or created companies in the Western Sahara illegally. So Algeria can, as a state, ask the European what happened. We need to know the truth. We have to have answers to our questions, and we need to, not just from the judicial system, and even from the Parliament itself, and even from the European Union. And when I say the European Union, I mean the Commission itself. We need responses to these cases.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Massari. Mr. Debesh, it really is a snowballing story. More facts are coming up to the surface, and more revelations are made. Do we expect more people, more MEPs to be involved and more facts to come out, especially that the investigation by the Belgian authorities is still ongoing?
Definitely. if we know that, especially in relation to Morocco and to the Morocco system, why a system, a political system, or a government or a state goes for illegal practices, including corruption and bribes, because they have no other rights, they have no rights, objective rights, and they have no legality to maintain. So they go for other illegal, hidden exercises to gain some interests, like trade agreements, like the occupation of Western Sahara. If this system, Morocco system, exists, I would expect more people will see more people in the parliament, more people in the government, more politicians, more NGOs engaged in such practices taken by the secret services of Morocco. So to me, I think now time is ripe for us, Algeria. We know Algeria. Why Algeria does not use lobbying, does not use hidden elements. Why? Because everything is clear, based on state-to-state relations, based on mutual respect of sovereignty, mutual interest, etc. There is no reason for Algeria to go to use or to make illegal exercises to maintain some ends they want to do. Like if we talk about Western Sahara, which Algeria defends and the world defends, is clear. The Western Sahara people say we accept any option Morocco asks for, but including we have to put them in 3 or 4 dimensions, and then we'll get the people of Western Sahara through referendum decide which option they want.
Right.
Algeria, no reason you have to make lobbying to influence American government or to influence European Union to go for as such. Whereas Morocco is against such principles, such objectivity, such international legality, they try to use other means. I'll tell you what, Morocco's move is fragile and always a failure. Why? I take the fishing argument, which always sometimes the European Union agree that they will let Morocco to fish in the coast of the Western Sahara, and sometimes no. Why? Because the lobbying of Morocco, because if we relate it just to the objectivity of the European Union, the principles of the European Union, the principles of international law, there will not be as such. That's why even the Prime Minister, the Chief Government of Morocco himself, was engaged in trying to bribe or influence some people with gifts and corruptions to make them accept Morocco's agriculture policy in Morocco and in Europe. That means that Morocco has a fragile existence in dealing with the international world, whether at the level of the United Nations or even with the United States. Morocco is trying to claim that the United States accepts Morocco annexation of Western Sahara. But since the arrival of Biden, the United States has never confirmed that, and saying we have to work with UN envoy to the Western Sahara to find a political solution. That means the United States in the end is cohesive with the international legality. In contradiction, what Morocco wants to show that the United States is for Morocco position. It's trying to do the same thing with the European Union through corruption. That's why I think now, as my friend said, Mansari, Algeria, we have to use media. We use all the means, especially through the
various channels.
No, through different channels, whether mediatic channels or audiovisual channels, to show how Algeria have been the victim of such elements who are in prison now. At the leadership of the parliament and at the leadership of the Senate of Europe. We were victims in the 90s, and we were victims only a few weeks ago.
Thank you, Mr. Debesh. Thank you, Mr. Debesh. To you now, Mr. Gildiver. Fight Impunity is an NGO started by Panzeri. What can we expect for the future of Fight Impunity, especially that it is heavily related to the case and is repeatedly mentioned? What do we expect for the future of this NGO?
We expect a great victory, and we are very strong. I am mandated by the Front Polisario to obtain the cancellation of an European agreement with Morocco if there is application of the Western Sahara territory. And as this day, I understand that Morocco is sure that we will lose. They have no legal argument. So they use corruption. So we are winner. The Front Polisario is winner. The Front Polisario will get independence and the right to autodetermination before the court. And as the adversary party has no legal argument, she used corruption to obtain this result. But now we are very strong because we say they use corruption because it is the only way. So we are waiting and we are preparing very hard this session. I am focused on this unique objective to obtain the compensation. And we have lots of things to explain to the judge. I just say two things. First, it is not press inquiry. It is a judicial inquiry by the best regime in Belgium. Very independent and very strong judge. And the judge has just begun this inquiry, but in the 6 months when we will be hearing, we will have lots of information of the judge. So we do not speak of my opinion, but of objective knowledge, objective connaissance of what is the reality of the corruption. First, very important, and I am waiting for the work of the judge. Second, we have a precedent. We have a precedent. Before the vote of the Parliament on the agreement expressed, the agreement of 2029, we have the Parliament organized a commission to go in Western Sahara to see what is the reality. Is there progress for the population? And the mandate parliamentary, Madame Patricia Lalonde. Madame Patricia Lalonde, we discussed with her. And we understand that she is very think and very hazy with Morocco point of view. She was very clear. But it is a parliament, she is honest, and she will do its job. When she go to Morocco, make this inquiry investigation, it was a wonderful work. All is made for the progress of the population. Morocco is formidable, and all what is done by the Amazon is excellent. So she come back and she make the report as Parliament say to the Parliament. You can vote the decision because really Morocco is excellent on the territory. And it was a press newspaper, the EU Observer, who just with shock that record and search who is the Mrs. Lalonde. And he found that Mrs. Lalonde is member of the board of the most important lobbying organization of Morocco in Brussels. And she profits of the car with immatriculation of the green plaque. Say that is a diplomatic parliament. And je say she is member of this board. The question is public. And Mrs. Lalonde said, yes, it is a reality. I recognize. So I resigned my function because there is COVID. And the second parliament was a political group who say I am decided to present the report. I see the report. It is so bad that I cannot approve this report. And I happen to vote against this report because it is very interesting. So it was really an act. And we work to say as lawyer, we do not go out of the line of what is asked for us. And it is the cancellation. And I work not my opinion, I work groups. So these days, yes, but with the information we have.
All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Diver. Thank you, Mr. Diver. These were your expectations about the impact of this scandal for the Polisario Front and for Western Sahara. Back to the NGO Fight Impunity, the question on NGO Fight Impunity's future with you, Mr. Mansari.
Well, it appears like a sample of how the bribery was organized under the umbrella of
NGOs.
Not just the NGOs, but the fact that these let's say, fishy organizations have been working and lobbying in favor of Morocco's stances and policies within the European Parliament or elsewhere. So Morocco is using such an organization, impunity against impunity.
Fight impunity.
Fight impunity. Why? Because it will show that these people are clean, are virtues, defending virtues, but in reality they are defending non-virtues and they are unethical and whatsoever. So this is why it has to be investigated. It has to be the members of the or the adherent of these organizations has to be questioned by the investigators. I think. So this sample or this organization probably is connected to other organization with similar objective, with similar targets. This is it will create a sort of suspicion, even with NGOs working really for the benefits of the people. So it has tarnished the image of every organization working with the European Parliament. This is on one side. The other side is the fact that on the top of the European Parliament, at the political level, we have seen how ministers, how officials have defended the Moroccan stances in every way, especially France, from the president until the most at the lower levels of the political landscape in France, especially the left wing or even from the Socialist Party or even from the right-wing parties in France. For France, Morocco is a partner, is an ally, and even a commercial alliance as well. So the fact that the Parliament is in Strasbourg, it could give a chance or even facilities to many media over there to try to be a sort of springboard for the politician to reach any vulnerable MP who is ready to be corrupted, who has, because I think they play on the psychological and even the situation. The Greece MP, vice president, who comes from a country with probably a lot of difficulties, economic difficulties. So they're trying to find people who are vulnerable.
Like easy target.
And yes, easy target, vulnerable and easy to manipulate. And I guess this case has to be reported and even reported, and at the same time taken as an example to investigate other cases, why this is happening, how this organization have been created, for which reason, and in the same time, where are the rights of the West Sahara people? I think I agree with Mr. Gildevers when he said that the fact that these manipulative operations have probably succeeded within the parliament, but they did not succeed in the European justice. They have conducted two successive failures before justice, whether in European Court of Justice, whether in European Court of Human Rights, or even International Court of Justice. So each time there is a legal breach, the people like Jill Devers or others are trying to defend and put the reality in its real path regarding this Western Sahara issue, because something like the fish agreement is to impose a de facto reality that these territories, whether maritime territories or the inner land, belong to Morocco, because Western Sahara now is no legal land. It is occupied. So there is no local administration, so nobody knows exactly what's going on. That's why Mr. Judevers talked about the fact that there were delegation going there and saying everything is fine, which is not a truth, because those people were bribed and were given gifts, and when they came back to the parliament, they were trying to make their report adopted by the MPs in the European Parliament.
Can you call it a network, Mr. Mansari?
It's a network, whether in European or even in the United States. I have told you before previously that there are Morocco is also lobbying within the United Nations, and even in Africa, and even with certain countries, they're trying to gain support in Africa within the African Union through banks, because Morocco has a lot of banks working in Africa and have a lot of commercial and trade agreement with a lot of countries in Africa. When Morocco came back after years of absence inside the African Union, they tried to do one thing: to exclude the Polisario, the state, to exclude the Western Sahara state as a member, a founding member of the United African Union. Right. That was the objective. Why? When you exclude the Western Sahara, you create a sort of legal path to gain support against for your stances. That's what happened exactly. So Morocco is using different spaces to whether through bribery or even through any other means to gain support and impose an illegal situation in a country that has been occupied for 45 years.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mansari. Back to you, Mr. Gildivert. Aside from the lawsuit against... All right, now to you, Ms. Abdeslam. El Foto Quotidiano reported that even Sultana Khaya was a victim of this interference and the pressure that Al Makhzen applied in the European Parliament. After the left group has proposed Sultana Khaya in 2021 for her name to appear in the trio of finalists for the Sakharov Prize for the freedom of thought, but with the complicity of the MEPs on Morocco's payroll, the Sahrawi activist was deprived of this prize. How do you see this act? And is it a way for Al Makhzen to cover up for the crimes they are committing against the Sahrawi people?
Yes, as I told you, it's a pattern in every capital, in every place, in every situation when the Sahara people are visible. Morocco tried to bribe and to use corruption to really neutralize any kind of visibility to this cause and to the right of the people for self-determination. So Sultana Khaya is not the only one. We have to remember also Aminatu Haidar. She was also one of the laureates that didn't win the Sakharov Prize. And Sultana, it was in this later, I think it was this year. And we see how Morocco used corruption to neutralize a prize for human rights, and how the institutions that should be the protection of the human rights has become to put pressure on the people who are advocating and giving their life for the protection of these rights. We have to remember that Sultana Khaya was raped in her house, was obliged to stay in her house for more than almost 1 year. She was arrested, she was tortured, she was raped, she and her mother and her sister, and she herself has been subjected to many human rights violations. But these institutions, instead of protecting her and giving her visibility, and given the visibility of the international law that gives the right of the Sahara people to have the right to self-determination, they use corruption to suppress her voice. So what's happening in the European Union in the Parliament is not an exception. It's the peak of the iceberg, and it's happening in every capital. It's happening in every organization, and it's the same pattern that Morocco uses to suppress the voice of the Sahrawi people and to suppress the implementation of international law. We have to see that the damage that Morocco is doing to UN system, to international law, it's a huge damage. And we hope that the people who really believes in the UN to continue fighting to protection for the standards, to protect every one of us. Because if the international law sacrifices Sahrawi people, they should be ready to sacrifice Algeria, Switzerland, France, or whatever.
Thank you, Ms. Abdeslam. We are having a problem with the call with Mr. Gilles Divert. This is why. Now we get to the final questions, and it is for both of you, Mr. Mansari and Mr. Debesh. What do we expect the outcomes of this scandal on the relations of the European-Moroccan relations? The beginning is with you, Mr. Debesh.
First, the viewers of our mission today will see Morocco is a big country to the extent can influence America, influence Europe, and doing all this. We must clarify that lobbying through corruption, bribes, reflect a weak country, not a strong country. A strong country does not need lobbying because the transparency, the objectivity is there. So Morocco is in a weak position. That's why it goes for other illegal exercises and the practices. Now, do we expect Europe will react? I think Europe should react, must react, because such exercises will spoil the relationship between Europe and other countries. A country like Algeria. I myself was in very different missions in Algerian TVs, and Europeans trying to accuse Algeria of illegal exercises for human rights and freedom, etc., etc. And the reality is not as such.
Right.
The Europe now knows such decisions, accusations made because of the lobbying of elements within the institution of Europe. Right. Now, Algeria has almost $40 billion of Europe. $1 billion with Europe. That means 40% of Algeria, or maybe even 50% of Algeria economic trade and economics with Europe. If European countries continue to allow such persons like MPs and elements to influence the leadership of European Union to make decisions against, Algeria has other alternatives, and the loser is Europe. That's why Europe must react against any illegal action, whether by Morocco or any other country.
Right, we are short on time. We are short on time, Mr. Debesh.
Touches the very existence of the liberty, democracy, and the freedom defended by the European Union.
Thank you, Mr. Debesh. We are short on time, so one last brief intervention from you, Mr. Mansari. Do you agree?
Well, I guess we have to differentiate between the fact that people, countries, or even organizations can lobby, even in the different levels, different fields, especially the multinationals, like in oil industry, we lobby a lot. And this is not just a problem. We have a lot of countries are using soft power to gain support, or even to get access to markets. This is what a lot of countries do. But the bribery and the corruption is the key central element of this talk show. So what we are expecting is the fact that three things. First, Algeria has to react, has to ask questions. As a country, as a victim, the European countries has to clarify this investigation. It's not just like creating a commission to kill the subject itself. And a third, Morocco has to be officially accused officially, because why? One, it's a representative who is currently the ambassador of Morocco in Poland, Mr. Abdelali Atamoun, is currently the ambassador of Poland, who was the proxy and even the connector between Alice Panzeri and the secret Moroccan Secret Service. All these elements has to be questions raised even by our media, or even by international media, or even by the international institutions. So we are in the middle of a big scandal. It's true, it's a despicable scandal, and probably it's not the only one. Probably behind, if we dig deep into this issue, probably the justice will find other scandals that could really demonstrate how Morocco is using, let's say, filthy methods just to neutralize the Western Sahara issue, to prevent people from getting their rights for independence, and even to tarnish and aggressing and targeting countries like Algeria.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Mansari. And with that, today's debate comes to a close. Thank you so much for my guests for their rich interventions. Mr. Debesh, a professor of political science and international relations, thank you for your presence with us today. Mr. Kamal Ansari, thank you so much for your presence and your interventions. And Mr. Gilles Diver, who is back online, thank you so much for your intervention with us today. And finally, Ms. Abdeslam, thank you to you as well. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching today's show. Have a lovely remainder of your evening on Canal Algérie.